Thank you, Julie. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being here today. I'm Laurie Harrison. I'm an open educational technologist in the Graduate Center's Teaching and Learning Center. And I'm going to take a few minutes today to just kind of give you an overview of the CUNY Academic Commons and talk a little bit about what folks are doing on the platform and show some examples. And you'll also see some wonderful examples from the other people who are going to talk here today too. I did drop a link to the Commons in the chat, and I dropped a link to a Google Doc that has essentially an overview of what I'm going to say. If I run out of time, you have all my links and just links to all the samples that I might show. So you have access to these later after this meeting ends. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. So you will be able to see what I see. And I will say, please feel free to interrupt me if I'm going too fast, or if you have a particular question, I'm happy to clarify, or you can drop questions in the chat and I can get to them later during our Q&A session. But I don't know if any of you have used or seen the Commons before. Well, actually, I know some of you have, but the Commons recently got a bit of a facelift and we redesigned the homepage. So what you're seeing here is the new Commons homepage, and I am not logged in. But I wanted to point out that if you are not yet a Commons user, you can go to the homepage and click register. You can sign up with your Hunter email, and later if you do want to change that email, if you use something like Gmail more often, you can change it in your profile, but originally you do have to sign up with a CUNY email address. I also want to point out on the homepage this question, what can you do here? Because on the Commons, there's essentially two kinds of spaces that you can build that facilitate all sorts of collaboration and community building across the platform. And those two spaces are a group and a site. And I'm going to show a couple of examples of groups and sites, but I also wanted to point out that you can create a connected group site that essentially links a group and a site together, so you get the functionalities of both spaces. And again, I'll show an example in 1 minute. But I do encourage you to explore the Commons homepage. We have all of our latest news, the updates and everything that we've been doing on the Commons for the past year is kind of summarized in those top articles. And I just want to point out briefly these building blocks. The Commons connects people across CUNY. It's been around since 2009, and we currently have over 35,000 CUNY members. That's faculty, staff, graduate, and undergraduate students across the university. And on the Commons, there are almost 20,000 websites that have been built on this platform. That's everything from conference websites to course websites, personal and student portfolios, and I'll show you briefly those in a second. There's also almost 2,000 groups, which is essentially a private space for people to talk about research or facilitate emailing. And more recently, we've opened up the Commons to undergraduate teaching. And already in the past 4 years, the Commons has hosted over 1,700 courses. So it's really an active space. And so I'm going to go ahead and log in and let you see kind of all of this activity across the CUNY Commons. So that is register. Let me log in here real quick. So once you log in, you'll see that you have an area kind of at the top that's really personalized for my sites. So once you start building sites, maybe hosting your course on the Commons, this is where all your information is going to come up. You'll see my sites and my groups. And as you look through the homepage, and what the Commons is really striving to do, it is trying to connect people across CUNY. So on the signed in homepage, you can see all of this activity that's going on across the university. You can see that someone is doing a book launch for a particular center in this first section. You can see that someone is creating a post in the digital dissertation site. And then you can also see activity across your campus. So for me, that would be the Graduate Center, but for you, it's going to showcase kind of activity that's going on across Hunter. And so this kind of new homepage is really nice at kind of connecting folks across the university. So let me show you an example now. Actually, I'll go to the top menu. You'll see this main menu up here. You have groups, sites, and courses. I'm going to hop into groups first so you can see what a group looks like. Let me find a group that I know well so then I can explain. So all of these are essentially links to different groups. I'll go in here for now This is looks like it's a course group, but I'm clicking into any group because actually all groups have the same user interface. They're all going to look like this. They have this group information across the top with the group name. They have this gray menu in the side, and then they have the same types of areas. You have the group homepage, which has like a collection of recent activity, and you have the forum, which actually allows you to do a kind of a threaded discussion. So you'll see on here, this particular professor is using the forum to post exam prep questions, introductions, resources. And when she posts things in this forum, all her forum post gets emailed out to all 24 members in the group. So she's essentially using this group to facilitate emailing her class. So she's posting updates and exam prep things and things like that. You'll also see that the group has a library. So this group library can hold all types of files. It looks like right now in here she has some images, but you can upload PDFs, Word documents, Excel files. You can actually now upload different links. So if you're using a Google Drive to host your readings, or if you're teaching a hybrid course and you need to share a Zoom link with your class, you could put your class Zoom link in this group library. So a group can host a course. You'll see here that actually a group can host, we have a group for our center. There's a group for a digital dissertation kind of collective of graduate students. There's a group for the digital initiatives at the Grad Center. I wanted to go down here. This DARC, Digital Archive Research Collective, that's a research group where they have kind of shared research interests, and they come together in this group to schedule meetings, to share different archives that they're working in. It's just essentially a way to share information with a particular group. I'm going to hop over now into a sample site that I'd like to show you. Let's see. I'll actually go to the site. You'll notice that the site directory looks very similar to the groups directory. We're working on changing that a bit, but you'll see up here it says the site directory, so you know you're looking at particular sites. And I'm going to go ahead and click into a site, but I want to click into one of the ones that I chose in particular. So sites can be used for hosting courses, like this Technologies of Reading course, which I showed yesterday in another workshop. This course site is really, really built out. You'll see a syllabus, the course schedule. This particular professor from York is listing all of her projects for the course. She's also listing blog post prompts. And then students are actually submitting work on this site. So they're submitting work about dead technologies, visual rhetoric. So this site is both a place to share course content, but also a place for students to be turning in their assignments. So it's kind of a really dynamic space. And this is a site. And you're going to notice when I show you other sites now that sites are really highly customizable. They look really different. A site is just a WordPress site. If you've ever used WordPress, which is a web framework that a lot of other websites run on, that is what the Commons is running on. So if you've built a site with WordPress or you've seen it in the back end before, you already have a leg up. You already know how to start building a site on the Commons. But there's a lot of different uses of sites on the Commons. We have faculty building personal portfolios where they, share their CV, they post their publications, they post their research, they post media coverage that they might have had or software they might have developed. And so all of this is free hosting. Instead of going and buying a Wix site and building your own personal portfolio, the Commons allows you to build out your own kind of digital presence in this space. And I will say, if you've already bought laurieharson.com, hopefully you haven't bought my name, but maybe you bought your own name.com or .org, we can map that onto the Commons. So if you own a domain name for yourself already, you can build your site for free on the Commons, and we can make that URL point to this particular site. In addition to faculty building portfolios, we have students that are building out portfolios. The City College Writing Program actually is running their 2-semester writing course on the Commons. Faculty hosts the writing course website on the Commons, and then students over the writing kind of career at City College, they continue to build out essentially a writing portfolio site. So this particular student is taking writing for engineering. I guess they're majoring in computer science. So they're posting their reflective essay, their introduction, their resume, their interview report, all on this writing portfolio on the Commons. And the nice thing about this is it's collected at the end of the kind of year-long series of writing course, and they have access to it forever. The Commons is not going to revoke access if they change their major or they change their CUNY college, or even after they graduate. Students will continue to have access to their work. And so will you as a faculty member. If you were to move on to a different college, you will continue to have access to your work and the intellectual property that you add to the Commons, because everything on the Commons is openly licensed. So all the content you add, you retain ownership of. We don't retain any sort of ownership of the content that you put on the Commons. There's all sorts of things on here. I'll show you maybe two more. We have journals that are hosted on the Commons. We have this Theory, Research, Action, and Urban Education journal. We have the Journal of Interactive Technology and Pedagogy on the Commons. But I will say, if you're interested in hosting a journal, I would love to talk to you about it. But there also is an open source platform called Manifold that's also great at digital publishing. So we have, the Commons has journals, but Manifold is also another CUNY project that is becoming really great for kind of digital scholarship and digital publishing. We have folks hosting their departmental sites on the Commons. Here you'll see the PhD program in history, but we have, you know, educational psychology on the Commons. We have departmental websites from Queens and LaGuardia Community College. So sometimes departments have their institutional presence on the CUNY website that their campus hosts, but sometimes the department might want a little more flexibility for hosting events or sharing resources. And so they host a sort of second, more flexible site on the Commons, and we're open to helping you set that up. Last one I'll point out is OER. Open educational resources. You may have heard this term floating around CUNY. It's becoming really popular, teaching with zero cost textbooks or openly accessible content. The Commons facilitates all kinds of OER work. We have, again, City College running their OER fellowship programming on the Commons, but we also have folks building out actual open resources for teaching. So here you see the natural sciences OER created by LaGuardia Community College. And this is now one of the main content sources for all of their natural science courses at LaGuardia. So they have different modules about human biology and health and disease, and they have all of these links to their labs and their syllabi, and all the homework and assignments are all hosted on the Commons. So if you and your colleagues are thinking about building sort of open resources to teach with, you're welcome to host them here on the Commons, and we'd be happy to help facilitate like that development too. I will leave it there, but I do recommend, let me actually just hop back here for 1 second. One thing I want to show you is this courses directory. We saw the groups directory, we saw the sites directory. All the courses on the Commons that have been taught are listed here. You might not be able to see into every single course because maybe they have a private site, which means it's private just to the folks in that course, but you can see that art and the science of dreaming is taught. You can see that computational methods and writing about art, and you can also search for courses. So if you're wondering if anyone has taught a similar course to you or a course in your discipline, they probably have, and you can look it up by keyword, by campus, by semester, and you can sometimes look through these courses. Sometimes the courses are on a public site, so you could see the syllabus or see the assignments that that particular professor is using. So if you have a chance, feel free to explore the Commons a little bit, and I think Stefania is going to talk a little bit more about her course. So I will kind of leave the courses up to other folks to talk about, but if you have any questions later, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Laurie. That was just a terrific tour of the site, and it's always great if you log in and we see the back end. So I think I can introduce Maayan Barkan, who is a colleague here at Hunter, the director of the Japanese program, and she is here together with her colleague Tomonori Nagano and many other colleagues from who teach Japanese across CUNY, and they'll share how the Commons became for them a place to collaborate and share resources. Maayan and Tomonara.
and Kazuko Saito. Thank you very much. So thank you for inviting us. We are very excited to be here and to talk about our project. We use the Commons in a very specific way, and I will tell you a little bit about the project, and then we'll show you the website, and we will talk about the benefits that we found about the Commons. So we started this our project, which we call it, it has a very long name, CUNY-wide Collaboration and Innovation for the New Digital Era of Japanese Language Education, CCI 2020. It all started directly as a result of the pandemic. We felt the urgent need to get together. Before that, we didn't have collaboration between CUNY campuses, Japanese programs, and we were all very lost, and we were lucky to have Kazuko Saito, who is here today. She was the only person from all Japanese teachers at CUNY that knew how to teach online. She had a good experience of teaching online, and she very kindly started giving us workshops about online instruction in general and Japanese language instruction in particular. We even opened an online SOS channel on Slack. If somebody didn't know what to do for the following day, they could just write something in the SOS channel and they will get an answer. And it became such a supportive system that we felt that we should even make it bigger. And we thought to start a project of creating material that can be used for both online and in person, and just collecting them from all CUNY Japanese language professors and help each other that way. And we asked the Japan Foundation for a grant, and they accepted. So we started the project. We had 5 leaders, the 4 Japanese program directors in Lehman, Baruch, Hunter, and LaGuardia, and Kazuko Saito, who started all of that, and 19 instructors from all CUNY campuses that offer Japanese language courses. And we divided ourselves into groups. So luckily, we were all teaching from the same textbook, which is called Genki. So we did like first group is Genki chapters 1 to 3, second group 4 to 6, and that's how we manage in small groups. And we created within the group, we created different materials. For example, Google Form. We used Google Forms, Google Slides, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, Kahoot, Peer Deck, etc. And then we did a feedback within the group. And from there, we moved to the Commons and we uploaded our, for example, if I created something, I received feedback from my group and then I sent it to the Commons for an external peer review. And more about the Commons from Kazuko Saito. Thank you.
This is this is Kazuko Saito, and this is the website that actually Dr. Nagano created, and like we used. This is just a screenshot, but like I can go into if we have time. And this is from the members, and also we used these commands for like submitting the materials that each instructor made for the online teaching, so we can share for the like urgent teaching because we use the same textbook. And we did the review evaluation, and we have to submit that the materials here and reviews, and all the eventually like all the devised CCI materials we can still like access to from here. It's the of course you need a password, but like you can access and you can look for the like the lesson plans for the materials that you want to use for the particular modules that you are teaching. And also like we included some like outside resources. So everybody like on CUNY on the project, that's the we can access to this commons, and like this was the platform, and together with Slack, that's for like the daily communications, and also like we use this commons as like going for like the platform and also the resources. So let me just quickly introduce you. Okay, so this is the top page. And so I think now it's closed, but this is from the where you submit the resource. And also like once you resource, like everybody has to do the evaluation, and after the evaluation peer review, and you have to submit from here. And now we have all those materials. I don't remember exact number, but it was, do you remember Dr. Barkan and Dr. Nagano? Yes, so this is all the resources. And you can access to the this website, and we can still use it for like if you are teaching like chapter 5, like you can come here and click it, and you can get the resource for the online, and not online, but in-person teaching as well. So this is what we created. Okay, let me go back to the slide so Dr. Nagano can.
Just as a comment, even yesterday, I didn't know what to teach today. So, and I didn't have time because I prepared for this presentation. So I quickly look at the lesson, and I found something and I used it. So.
Oops, okay. Nagano sensei, onegaishimasu.
Hi everybody. I'm Tomonori from LaGuardia Community College. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about how CUNY Academic Commons helped our project. You already got the link. So our project is housed in the CUNY Academic Commons. Specifically, we use the WordPress part of the commons. They call it sites, but it's basically WordPress. That's where we used. What's great about the WordPress or sites in CUNY Academic Commons is it has a very rich plugins, standardized plugins and templates. So basically, the beautiful website templates is ready for you to publish right away. So you don't need to spend tons of times to designing the websites and creating like a place for like sharing information or collecting the information from everybody. I think it was interesting. Someone mentioned that the students fatigues on different platforms, having too many platforms, and it was true for us as well. For this project, we use many different platforms. We use the Google Drive, Dropbox, Airtable. Like there are tons of different tools, but these the plugins, WordPress plugins, helped us to put all these platforms one place. So all we have to do is just go to WordPress, and from there, that's the starting point to go different places, because many people use different tools, but still everybody can go there to different places through the same window. Another thing I liked about the WordPress is the CUNY Commons sites is it's linked with the CUNY directory information. So our names are already there in a way. So it's the same thing as a CUNY Academic Commons. Our names are already there and then waiting for activation. So all you have to do is just click and then you're there. So it was very easy for us. We don't need to create the accounts for everybody. As long as you're employed by CUNY, your information is already there. We had some tech support from them, not extensive ones. Like, I don't know how it's administered, but there are some people who are willing to help us. It took me like maybe a month to find this specific link to issue the IT ticket for the Commons. So if you are interested in using, I'm pretty sure this link will be useful for you. The last but not least, definitely the URL, the .edu URL, gave us sort of like the stamp on like an official stamp on our project. Like whenever we share the project, it was great that we have this .edu URL in a project, because it takes a while to obtain .edu domain, but with the sites, it's really like a few minutes to create one.
So thank you so much for sharing this. This is very, I mean, this is just cool, you know, just to see how you came together. There was an SOS Slack channel, and then you found the Commons as a place to not only store the resources, but you also set up a whole evaluation process. So now we'll go over to our final speaker today, who's an all-round user of the Commons. So can talk really about the different aspects and templates that the Commons, the platform, allows for. So I will now pass it on to Stefania Porcelli, who we know as a CERT. We all know as a CERT. She's been a CERT fellow and is still a big part of our community, and a big fan of teaching on the Commons. Stefania.
All right, thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you today about my classes taught on the Common. I'm sharing my screen. Tell me if everything looks good. Actually, let me start from here. And I must say that all I know about the Commons, I learned from people in this room. So there won't be anything new for you guys and Laurie, Julie, Shao, and Jeff specifically. But if you haven't taught any classes on the Commons, then you will see some very basic teaching templates. I mean, I taught this class with minimal customization of the teaching template. And I'm going to show you tell you the reason why I teach on the Commons all of my content classes for sure. Not language classes yet. I'm trying to think how that could be effective. Anyway, these are some of the reasons and the ways I use the Commons. And I'm not gonna go into all the details here, but basically I think it's useful to have all the resources there, especially when you teach using digital databases. And if you want to teach your students some digital literacy, for example, how to write a blog post. So also trying to foster interaction. And I was surprised at one point, and I'm trying to encourage this more. I had some really creative assignment on the part of, and responses on the part of my students. Finally, self-promotion. I will tell you more in a little bit. So I'm going to give you a few examples, jumping from one of my websites to another, and because all of these things are kind of disseminating and emphasized in one rather than the other. So this is a class I taught last semester at City College. It's called Dante to Machiavelli. And in this class, I can show you how, if I click on syllabus, I put here in the student learning outcomes, how I want them to increase their digital literacy and also to respect the netiquette, so how to behave online. And I linked out here, there's a document, a CUNY document about how to interact online. There is a way to scaffold the writing assignment here, the blogging. And let's see how I did it here. So let me start with post 0. This is a non-graded assignment. The students simply had to upload an image that for them, it was representative of what we were reading in that week. So here you see that the students repeat the title of the assignment. They use, they put the picture. There was no attempt at doing anything else. An attempt here at writing a caption, but not much else. Okay, let me jump to now post number 2, for example. And you see here the assignment was pick a title, a keyword for a specific poem we read from Petrarca's Canzoniere. So at this point, the results are already nicer. We have the picture here. We have this is a caption, real caption introduced through the function. We don't have tags here, but I think some of them tried. See, the first tags appear here, and the category post 2. So already an improvement, and by the time of the actually, I just learned yesterday from Laurie how to organize the categories here so that I can jump straight to one kind of assignment if I want. The final paper looks a little bit more complex with links, where links were supposed to be embedded, but not all of them did. But we have a lot of tags here. It's a real blog post at this point. Okay, but let me, so this is one of my classes. I have another example here. So this is another way to engage the students and actually encourage them to interact among each other. Actually, I'm very proud here. I added this tag, this page called tutorials, where this is an activity that Jeff suggested to use. It's an interactive exercise about plagiarism, very cool. But what I wanted to show you is that in this class I taught on Ferrante, you see the students here are posting, or also posting pictures, but I added as activity the meta post, in which one student every week had to add comments on each other's blogging activity. So some of them would just, leave a comment on each post. This was pretty, long because the student chose to leave a comment on each post, but they didn't have to. Some write a general idea of what the week looks like, and so on. So this is one level of engagement, but I'm trying to think about other ways to have the students interact online among each other without having to assign them the interaction. I don't know if that's possible. Anyway, and you have, did we drop the link in the chat, Julie? Because I don't have the time to go over all of this, but this is the creative response I was talking about. So in this class, I created this website as a fellow of the Open Pedagogy Fellowship Laurie was talking about before, and I created this class as a zero-cost class, and this is how it looks. So if I go here, this is another way to organize the works. You can have the names of the students or the avatar on the sidebar. Also learned this from Laurie. And so I have this particular student, right? Joel. So this is his last assignment. So that's the final paper. He chose here to compare Harry Potter to Dante's Inferno. Very original. And he didn't put pictures here, but he linked to some pictures. That's a way to do it, right? Although the assignment was to include pictures up as part of the blogs. And here is where he, actually I'm going backwards. So he had started to post his comics. And this is Purgatorio 28. This is Matilda. Julie will laugh at this. But it's a way for the student to interpret Inferno without using a traditional writing assignment. The student wasn't feeling very comfortable writing just in the traditional way. And so when I asked my class how they study, how they prepare, he told me, I draw. And I told to him, well, why don't you draw for our class? And there are a few more. So you can have students post privately if you have a high stake assignment. So you don't want them to like copy from each other. This is an assignment devised by Julie, because I inherited this class from Julie at the Met, and they really did a good job, all of them, in this assignment. But I just wanted, let me show you. This is another comic strip. But you get the idea. We can talk more about this, but I feel like this, the comments in this case really catered for students with specific learning styles. And my last example, my last website I want to show you is the one I use as self-promotion. And this is literally the way I end my cover letters when I apply for jobs. And I link out to my e-portfolio, which is hosted on the Commons. And so I'm going to show you briefly how it looks like. This is a different template from the teaching one. I have a welcome page, a CV page, a research, which I divided into types of publications, a teaching, also divide my service. I added translations because I translated now 3 books into English, from Italian into English. So I added this page here. I added this blog post page, which is not the blogging page. I just, here I list what I wrote from 4 other websites, and clicking on read more, I linked out to those specific websites. This was a blog post I wrote for a cert, and this is a blog post about the class I taught, the zero cost class I taught, and this is one of Joel's drawings, another blog post, and in the post page of the template, I renamed it. I call it updates, and I post updates about what I'm doing. I posted this yesterday about today's event, and I posted that I was invited to teach a class by this Brazilian university. I posted that my article was out, and conferences, my talks, lectures, what is happening in my life as a teacher and scholar, and so on.